right, so let's talk about factoring here. Factoring is the distributive property, but in reverse. So instead of multiplying, we're dividing, and instead of adding to the exponents, we're subtracting from the exponents. So first thing we do is figure out what divides perfectly into 7 and 14, the greatest common factor. In this situation, it would be 7. So 7, I'm going to remove from the parentheses, and everything is going to get divided by 7, leaving me with a 1. We still have x to the third plus 2, and we still have x to the 7th. Now this has x times x times x, and this one has x times x times x times x repeated until I get to 7. So how many multiplying x's do they have in common? This one has 3 and this one has 7. So they have 3 in common. So that's what I'm going to remove from everything. So if I remove 3 from here, I'm left with just 1. And if I remove 3 from here, I'm left with 4. And that's factoring. Let's do it one more time here. What number perfectly divides into 4 and 6? That's going to be 2. Now that means everything's going to get divided by 2. So that's going to make 2xy3. And that's going to make 3x2y2. Or to the second power. So now we look at how many x's they have in common. This one has 1, and this one has x squared, which is x times x. So they only have 1 in common, so that's what I'm going to remove from everything. So I'm left with 2y3 plus 3x and y squared. All right, how many y's do they have in common? This one has 3, so y times y times y, and this one has y times y. So they only have y times y in common, so I'm going to remove y to the second power, causing it to be 2y plus 3x. And that's done. That's factored. Now let's solve some one-step equations. So solving one-step equations is pretty easy. You're just doing the opposite of what is happening to the variable. So here we're adding 3, so we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. And my final answer is going to be -8. Here I'm going to add 8. That'll cancel. Add 8 to the other side, and I'm left with 18. Here, 2 and x, a number next to a letter automatically means multiplication. So we're going to divide, because that's the opposite. I'm left with x equals 15. Here, the opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. X equals 48. Now we're going to do some two-step equations. So it's the same thing. We're doing the opposite of what is happening to the letter, but in the opposite order that it would normally occur. So it's very similar to doing PEMDAS in reverse. Okay, so remember what PEMDAS is. P-E-M-D-A-S. So there are two things happening to the x, right? It's multiplying by 5, and it's adding 13. So, yep. So now we're going to get rid of these things in reverse order. So not P-E-M-D-A-S. We're going to be getting rid of it in S-A-D-M-E-D. SAD-MEP. So subtraction would go first. So the opposite, or subtraction would go first, and then addition. So we got to get rid of the addition. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. I'm left with a 5x still. I haven't done anything with it. And now I have 40 here. Then the opposite of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. So x equals 8. All right, we'll go to the next one. So there are two things happening to the x. It's being divided by 4, and we're subtracting 8. So remember, we're getting rid of subtraction first and then division. So the opposite of subtraction is addition. I'm left with x over 4 equals 11. Then I'm going to multiply by 4 because that's the opposite of dividing by 4. And my final answer is 44. Now this last one, so this is in parentheses, so it's going to be done last. I got to get rid of the plus 3 last. And then I'm dividing by 5. So seeing as though this one has to be last, I have to do this one first. The opposite of dividing by 5 is multiplying by 5. So multiply by 5, I'm left with x plus 3 equals negative 10. Then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. X equals negative 13. And then we're done. Good luck.